report to you fighting men and women about the Battle of the United States.
In 1964, the FBI launched a 2-year investigation into a recording of Louie Louie by the Kingsmen. What did the investigation find, and more importantly, why did they investigate this song? The answer is complicated.
What I'm about to tell you has not been told in detail before.
The Kingsmen! Now!
The 1950s introduced the world to rock and roll music. Artists such as Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Bo Diddley, and many more were playing rhythm and blues music. But they were playing it fast and loud. The sounds of rock and roll music spread like a frantic wildfire to every part of the United States and beyond, while some very vocal people decried the music as being the moral downfall of the youth.
Reasons on rock and roll music and why I preach against it, and I believe with all of my heart that it is a contributing factor to our juvenile delinquency of today. I 100% believe it. Why I believe that is because I know how it feels when you sing it. I know what it does to you. And I know the evil feeling that you feel when you sing it.
Louie Louie didn't start as a rock and roll song. Its roots are in a Cuban cha-cha. In 1955, a 21-year-old musician named Richard Berry was in his dressing room at a venue when he heard a song playing on the other side of the wall. The intro melody to this song stuck with him. Soon after this, Berry would write and record a rhythm and blues song with that simple melody as the basis for the rest of his song. The song was a regional hit, but didn't see much success outside of California. The story goes that copies of the 45 made its way up the West Coast, and the song was discovered in a record store by a band at Tacoma, Washington called the Wailers. They created a very different arrangement and style for their cover of Berry's song. A recording of this was the version that was heard on a jukebox by 5 teenage musicians outside of Portland, Oregon in 1961. The Wailers' cover had become a big enough hit in the Pacific Northwest that bands playing in the area would get requests for it on a regular basis. In addition to learning the song for live gigs, some bands decided to record their own covers as well. 2 bands in Portland, in fact, recorded the song in the same studio in the same week. One was Paul Revere and the Raiders, and the other was the Kingsmen. The studio that recorded the track was new to recording rock and roll and had much more experience recording simple radio ads and commercial jingles.
Try a pack of new king-size Philip Morris Commanders made on a new machine, the Mark 8. The tobacco in these cigarettes is vacuum cleaned, and the cleaner the tobacco, the better it tastes. Yes, the cleaner the tobacco, the better it tastes. Noticeably better.
Have a Commander. Welcome aboard.
A very different kind of setup from a 5-piece rock band.
By today's standards, yes, it was a very, very modest studio.
Sure.
But back then, it was the only thing going.
So this is interesting. So how did it get where the words were not easy to understand? Was there any attempt to try to make your voice less distinctive or something?
No, in order to capture what Ken thought was the live sound, he had us set up in a circle with me standing in the middle, singing into the mic, and it still didn't sound quite right. He had us run through about 8 bars or so, and it still didn't sound quite right to him.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a technician come in and take the mic and put it on a boom and stick it up at the ceiling. That's about a 15-foot ceiling, so the mic was hanging probably, 18 to 24 inches off the ceiling, and I was directly under it, leaning my head back, yelling up at this mic.
The haphazard production captured the song in a single take. Just a few weeks after recording Louie Louie, the Kingsmen released the single through a small label in May of 1963. By the end of the summer, the band had sold only around 600 copies. Even in a decade that is remembered for how much monumental change took place, 1963 was a particularly momentous year in many ways.
And I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed.
In 1963, there were significant advancements in civil rights for women and people of color, but also a violent backlash from those in power. This destabilized the establishment of mostly white men who controlled the government and businesses. All this was happening while the United States was in the middle of the Cold War and the Vietnam War. So the country was fearing a nuclear attack while sending more and more troops overseas.
Sundays, holidays, vacation time, we must be ready every day, all the time, to do the right thing if the atomic bomb explodes. Duck and cover. This family knows what to do, just as your own family should.
And even with all of that, many people in the United States were still worried that rock and roll was going to corrupt the fragile values of American life.
Rock and roll has got to go, and go it does. That's the best way I know to get rid of it. Why, you say, eliminate rock and roll from programming here on KWK? Well, it's a very simple...
The real turning point for the Louie Louie single was in October of 1963 when it was played by Arnie Woo Woo Ginsburg on a radio station in Boston.
Arnie Ginsburg Tonight Train Show, WMEX $1 Million Weekend. Live it up, baby. This weekend, where the action is.
It was featured as Arnie's worst record of the week. It became a regional hit almost overnight. Record stores in and around Boston were getting requests to stock Louie Louie. From there, it took off. The single went from being nowhere on the Billboard Hot 100 charts in October to peaking at number 2 by December. This is the song that kept it from being the number 1 spot. The earliest news coverage regarding the supposedly obscene lyrics came from Indiana. 2 teenagers from Frankfort, Indiana wrote a letter to Governor Matthew Welsh expressing their concern over the song's lyrics. He, in response, listened to the record. Believing he also heard obscene lyrics, asked radio stations not to play it. The oldest document in the FBI report is dated February 7, 1964. It's a letter to then Attorney General Robert Kennedy. The anonymous Floridian wrote, "My daughter brought home a record of Louie Louie, and I, after reading that the record had been banned from being played on the air because it was obscene, proceeded to try to decipher the jumble of words. The lyrics are so filthy that I cannot enclose them in this letter." No one knows for sure where the alternate lyrics originated. Wherever it started, it traveled far and fast as differing versions of the lyrics were discovered and reported by teachers and parents of students in Florida, California, and Michigan.
Oh no, hey babe, let's dance this song. What are you singing? Louie, Louie. Oh baby, got you way down low. I got you way down low? Those are the words. It's a hump song. It's a hump song. When you hump, it's about humping. Oh, get off. Listen. I take her parking all alone. She's never a gal I lay at home. Those are not the words. Have it your way.
Morons, it's not a hump song and it's not a dance song. It's a sea shanty. Talking about going to sea and leaving this girl.
A sea shanty?
He's not saying every night at 10 I lay her again. He's saying 3 nights and days I sailed the sea.
I'll say come on everybody. Come on everybody to the...
The widespread complaints prompted investigations by the FCC, the Post Office, and the Justice Department. They were specifically looking to see if the band and record label could be prosecuted for interstate transport of obscene material. As early as February 12th, it was documented that all 3 government agencies dropped their investigation because they were unable to determine what the lyrics of the song were, even after listening to the records at speeds ranging from 16 RPM to 78 RPM. At this point, the FBI got involved. On March 4th, 1964, the FBI issued the result of their examination. The lyrics of the song on the record Q1 was not definitely determined in the laboratory examination. It could not be determined whether Q1 is an obscene record. Despite the fact that 4 different government agencies investigated the song and came to the same conclusion, the FBI's investigation did not end there. Reports and accompanying requests for examination continued to come in. Attorneys wanted the FBI to give them evidence and corroboration that the lyrics were obscene in order to provide a basis for prosecution. At one point, it appears J. Edgar Hoover, then head of the FBI, may have taken a personal interest in the investigation. On June 23, 1965, a letter to Hoover is received, sent by a concerned mother about the song. Hoover replies within 2 days, agreeing to many of her concerns. Within 2 weeks, the FBI decides to do several things all at once. First, track down the master recording from the record label. Then, track down the original recording from the original songwriter. And finally, interview the band. The FBI sought the original master recording tape, hoping to isolate the vocal track. As the song was recorded with only one microphone, this was not possible. A sound engineer, however, was able to provide the FBI with a copy of the track with an enhancement to the vocals. They were still no closer to discovering any obscenities. Following the examination of the enhanced vocals from the master tape, the FBI finally decided to look at where the song came from. They looked into versions by the Wailers and also the original by Richard Berry, as well as tracking down the officially distributed sheet music with lyrics. Finding that the official lyrics appear to match what they hear on the record, the agents determined once again that the song is not obscene, more than a year and a half after the investigation began. After the FBI exhausted their ability to dissect the recording, they interviewed Richard Berry and then the members of the Kingsmen. However, according to Jack Ellie, the singer on the recording of Louie Louie, he was never interviewed. Possibly because at this point, he had not been a member of the band for over a year. Their positions could probably be best summed up by an editorial that was written by Vern Stearman for KEEL out of Shreveport, Louisiana. He said, "We can censor the material we put on air, but we cannot censor the minds of people. Little minds think little thoughts, and unfortunately, dirty minds think dirty thoughts. Someone, somewhere, with an obscene imagination decided to write lyrics that, in his opinion, sounded like the sounds on the recording by the Kingsmen." This story was relayed across the country by the news services, and little minds all over began to write their own lyrics to the song. Lyrics which do not exist on the recording of Louie Louie by the Kingsmen. On December 2nd, 1965, Assistant United States Attorney General Robert Grace appears to be the last person to document the same conclusion that every other person investigating this had come to. There was no evidence of a violation of the Federal Interstate Transportation of Obscene Matter statutes. He said that he, therefore, was recommending that no further investigation in this matter be conducted. And just like that, as aimlessly as the investigation began, it was brought to an end after 2 years and who knows how much taxpayer money. The Kingsmen recorded several more albums and saw some success, but never again would they see the kind of phenomenon that Louie Louie was. The band was against the idea of having obscenities in their songs, and were concerned that the controversy around this recording would have long-term impacts on their fan base and reputation. It's hard to tell if it did. The Kingsmen's version of Louie Louie had effects farther and wider than anyone would have ever guessed. The melody was catchy, the lyrics were simple, and the instrumentation had 1 foot in the innocent simplicity of 50s pop and 1 foot in the raucous rock and roll music of the 60s. I think that the song carried on for more social reasons than anything else. If you were someone that wanted to hear dirty words, you could easily impose any number of things on the incoherent singing during the verses, and many of those people felt like they were being subversive and getting away with something, probably even more so because of how widespread the controversy was. On the other hand, if you were someone that felt misunderstood because you felt that you were different from your parents and your peers, the song may be more meaningful or relatable because it came under fire despite not having anything wrong with it. The song could be what you wanted it to be, as long as you found the right people to sing along with.
From a
So good night, everybody. Thanks for watching. And remember, no matter what anyone says, rock on!